When Daniel Creed received the call from the cruise company 10 years ago, his entire world split in half. His 22-year-old son, Evan, had gone missing during the final night of a Caribbean cruise. Passengers reported seeing him at dinner, smiling, relaxed, even dancing. By dawn, security said they found a body floating near the ship's stern, unrecognizable, swollen by the sea, but wearing Evan's clothes and carrying his ID. The police concluded it was an accident, perhaps a fall after drinking. Daniel never believed it. Evan was careful, steady, the kind of young man who texted his father every hour during trips. Something felt wrong, but with no witnesses, no video, and a closed investigation, Daniel was left with nothing but ashes to bury and questions that never let him sleep. For years, he tried to move on. He sold the house where Evan grew up and moved into a quiet apartment near the harbor. He avoided cruise ships, ocean documentaries, even the smell of sunscreen, anything that reminded him of the son he lost. Still, every night he replayed the same scene in his mind, Evan standing on the ship's deck, looking over the water, vanishing before anyone could save him. Then, on an ordinary morning a decade later, Daniel walked into a cafe near the harbor. A young waiter passed his table, carrying plates. Daniel felt his lungs freeze. The man's face, those eyes, that walk was unmistakable. It was Evan, alive, older, but absolutely him. Daniel stood so abruptly his chair collapsed behind him. The young man turned, confused for a moment. Then his expression shifted: shock, fear, then something colder. He whispered something to a woman sitting nearby. A little girl sat beside her, swinging her feet, calling him Daddy. Daniel's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Daddy. His son, the boy he buried, now had a family, and he didn't look happy to see Daniel at all. Daniel followed them outside. He didn't mean to scare them, but a decade of grief burned inside him, pushing him forward. Evan saw him approach and hissed under his breath, "Walk away, please." His voice was lower, rougher, but impossible to mistake. "Evan," Daniel whispered. Why did you disappear? Why did you let me bury you?" The woman grabbed Evan's arm. "Who is he?" "No one," Evan insisted. "Let's just go." But Daniel stepped in front of them. "You're my son. I thought you died." Evan closed his eyes, pain flashing across his face. "I'm sorry, but I can't be that person anymore." They drove off quickly, leaving Daniel standing alone in the parking lot, trembling. That night, Daniel began digging. He searched old police reports, passenger lists, crew records, anything he might have missed. A name kept appearing in small notes: Lena Vargas, a cruise staff member who disappeared the same night as Evan. Daniel tracked her down through social media and found a profile. A woman who looked remarkably like the one he saw with Evan at the cafe. The next evening, a message arrived in Daniel's inbox from an unknown number. "Stop looking. You're putting all of us in danger." Daniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. If Evan was alive, he wasn't hiding out of guilt, he was hiding out of fear. The more Daniel searched, the deeper the mystery grew. Bank transfers from unknown accounts had appeared in Evan's name months before his death. Criminal ring had been investigated on the same cruise, suspected of using romance scams to lure lonely passengers into paying large sums. Suddenly the story made a terrible kind of sense. Evan hadn't fallen off that ship. He'd been running from someone. But if he was running, who had died that night in his place? Daniel found Evan again 2 days later. This time Evan didn't run. He was tired, exhausted, as if a decade of secrets had worn him down. They sat in a deserted park, far from cameras, far from curious eyes. "I didn't fake my death," Evan began. "They did it for me." He explained everything. He had fallen in love with Lena during the cruise. She wasn't just a staff member, she was an undercover agent, investigating a dangerous love scam network operating on board. They targeted wealthy passengers, stole their identities, and forced vulnerable workers to cooperate. Evan accidentally overheard a conversation between the ringleaders. From that moment, he became a liability. Lena helped him escape by switching his ID. with a crew member who had been murdered the same night. The body the police found wasn't his. It was someone the scam ring had already silenced. They threatened you, Evan said, tears in his eyes. They said if I contacted my family, you'd be next. So I ran. New name, new life. Lena and I started over. Daniel's chest tightened. And now, are they still after you? Evan nodded. We were safe until someone reopened the old case last month. They think I talked. They're watching. Daniel wasn't a fighter or a detective, but he was a father, and fathers don't run. He contacted federal authorities, shared everything Evan told him, and demanded protection for his son's family. Weeks later, raids across multiple states exposed the largest romance fraud ring ever caught. Evan and Lena testified in secret. Their new identities were protected. For the first time in 10 years, Daniel held his son without fear. You came back to me, Daniel whispered. Evan smiled, tears in his eyes. I never stopped wanting to. And finally, after a decade of grief, lies, and danger, the father and son walked into the sunlight, together at last.